What is up, everyone? Just a week after losing the Milan derby, the door was left wide open for Inter to reclaim top spot in the tightest Scudetto race in recent memory. But just like that, sexy Sassuolo slammed it shut again. Elsewhere, Tottenham made trash of our pre-game predictions, as they do sometimes, and sometimes they don't. PSG got punched in the nose. La Liga's big three all got the job done, while in Germany, there was some bad news where the USMNT is concerned. I'm Heath Pearce alongside Jimmy Conrad, and we are here to break down a roller coaster weekend of European action. The Qué Golazo weekend recap begins right now. Now, everyone, if you're watching this live on YouTube, like the video, go on. It only takes a second, costs you nothing. More likes means we get more Qué Golazo in front of more people, more eyeballs. That helps us grow. You know, it's snowball effect. You know, it helps make this thing greater than the sum of its parts. And some of you are listening to this in podcast form. That's nice of you. Some of you know what's even nicer. Some of you don't. And that's leaving a comment, leave a review, give us 5 stars, leave a great rating. Glowing ratings and reviews help us. Life hack. You can do it now while you're listening to this. That would be great. Jimmy Conrad, what is going on, man?
First and foremost, Hollywood Heath, I want to see and say, well, I see Matteo Benetti in the chat, and I want to say hello to one of the voices of Serie on CBS and Paramount Plus. Always great to see you, Matteo. And then secondly, I got to MC the jersey unveil for the San Jose Earthquakes this upcoming season. I did it on Friday night. And Heath, I can't tell you how many people came up and said, say hi to Hollywood Heath for me on the Qué Golazo podcast. It was amazing. Pretty awesome. It is. I was like, wow, thanks for listening. It was pretty cool to actually meet some fans that are listening. If you're listening now, we appreciate you.
Yeah, I thought maybe that was AlphaCon that you were hosting over the weekend. I don't know if you saw some of whatever that crazy thing was.
I like to dabble in a bunch of different conventions.
Yeah. Yes. That's cool. And what's up to Matteo? That's awesome. That he's hanging out with us here in the comments. So Jimmy, let's get straight to some of the weekend action. Obviously,
where do you want to start?
Well, we're going to start in Serie A because, you know, Paramount Plus, baby. You got to do it. But guess what? My run a show, literally, while I'm looking at it right now, what we're going to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about.
Literally just kicked me out right now. So I have to go into my email again on my phone to give me the 2-step identity. You got to give me 1 second. I'll be back in it here in a second. Oh, we're coming back live. Okay. God, goodness gracious. I couldn't remember anything. Let's throw the Serie A table right on the screen, though, just for for everyone that's watching this in video form. But quite a bit of controversy when you think about just the Milan teams in general, plus Juventus dropping points. I mean, where do you want to start, Jimmy? You want to start with Inter Milan Sassuolo?
Actually, I'll start with AC Milan. I thought that them going against Salernitana, as well, you can't even see them in this first part of the graphic because they're all the way near the bottom or on the bottom.
No, they are the very
I was trying
bottom,
to be.
Jimmy,
I was trying to be
not
thoughtful about it.
Not near. They are at the bottom.
Now, they just hired their third coach this season, David Nicola. So I guess going into this, they had their second new manager bounce this season.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't play particularly well coming out of it. AC Milan scored early. Junior Messias, a nice little slotted it in. And it felt like that early goal almost worked against them. Like, oh, now we can just kick back. You know, we're going up against a team that doesn't have a lot of confidence. We're better than them. We're going to win. And Stefano Pioli actually came out and said, the manager of Milan, that after we scored, we started to play more frenetically. We weren't clean. They started to fight and earn and win the second balls, and we just could never really, I'm paraphrasing him here, but really like maintain and dictate the pace of the game anymore. And he was pretty disappointed by it. They couldn't make the most of his spaces. They paid a heavy price for some naive errors. And Mike Mignon in goal obviously gifted Salernitana a goal. I say obviously, I'm assuming you've watched the highlights, but if you haven't or didn't see the game, Mignon comes flying out for no particular reason, and it leads to
it's like an early cross high. It's a floater, and it's at the very top of the box. Like,
and he's been so solid all season. Like, that just feels really erratic from him. And I feel like, and you've played enough, that when you get into a game and somebody you count on is starting to act erratically, it does permeate to the rest of the team, and it has this little ripple effect. And all of a sudden, somebody else gets a little nervy, and then somebody else gets a little nervy. And Pioli said it actually before this game against Salernitana that his team was a little nervous about being on top of the table, even though Inter, you know, they could feel the pressure a little bit. Inter have a game in hand, and obviously didn't make the most of it today against sexy Sassuolo, but big missed opportunity for Milan. Giroud had a great chance. He's still yet to score away from home in Serie A this season. He's lost scoring at the San Siro, but can't do it anywhere else. So we'll see if he can figure that out, because it's going to be of the utmost importance if they actually want to win the Scudetto this season.
Well, I mean, if our friend Mateo is still in the comments anywhere, unless he was just on a little stop and go pass by, would love to get his just take in general of who the biggest loser was, and actually anybody that's watching this right now, who the biggest loser in Serie A was over the weekend. Obviously, Sassuolo beating Inter 2-1. And here's a fun fact for you, Jimmy: Sassuolo have won 8 of their 18 Serie A matches with Inter Milan. They're 8-2-8 against them, which is a wild stat. And we know that sexy Sassuolo are sort of a giant killer in a lot of ways, but Inter failed to win 3 Serie A matches in a row for the first time since January 2020. 3 jaws under Antonio Conte, and we'll talk more about him later.
Can I throw you another fun fact about Sassuolo?
Yeah.
Okay, so Sassuolo in this year or this season, they have beaten AC Milan and Inter and Juventus away from home. That's the first time a team has done that since Fiorentina in 1955-56 season. Fiorentina went on to win the Scudetto that year. It's only happened 4 times. This is the 4th time it's happened in the history of Serie A, where a team has gone away from home and beaten Inter, Milan, and Juve. And the other teams were Fiorentina back then, and Torino and Vicenza did it back in 1946, 1947. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, everybody. That is a fun fact.
So we got a Mateo tweet up on the screen right now, and this is what's even more wild, right? You just talked about the giant killers, but they beat Milan 2-0. Then Sampdoria batters them 4-0, and then you have Sassuolo beats Milan, and then you have Bologna beats Sassuolo, Sassuolo beats Juventus, and Verona beats Sassuolo. I mean, you talk about the fact of like playing up and playing down to your competition and just
don't have time for the little mid-table crap or relegation. They don't have time. They just want to prove themselves against the best. I like that mentality.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think? I mean, where do you think things are leaning right now? Right, because I started to feel this different vibe about AC Milan. Like, hey, they got this momentum now. It's a little bit of a different belief, and we saw them sort of shaky earlier in the season after a fantastic start to the season, and then Inter Milan just linger around. Napoli are the ones that we kind of continuously write off in terms of winning. But it just continues to be where no one really wants to run away with that. Do you think that's a nervousness or the responsibility of being at the top of the table? Or is it just an indicator of how difficult Serie A is and just sort of the inconsistent performances that we're seeing from a number of these teams right now?
I'll say this. I think that every team goes through a little bit of a lull during a season, and it's just when that lull occurs. Sometimes it happens at the beginning. You kind of like working out your identity with some new players, a new coach, whatever it may be. And it looked like Simone Inzaghi had his team figured out. Now, they didn't have Barella for their Champions League tilt against Liverpool. They ended up losing that 2-0, even though 2-0 felt a little bit harsh. They gave up 2 goals, not in the run of play, but on set pieces. Today, they missed out on Brozovic, and I actually thought his presence was a little bit missed. Now, I've been on Handanovic, their goalkeeper, for a little bit. I don't blame him for either goal that Sassuolo scored today, but I thought he could have done a little bit better on the first. And I really feel like you need him to make some timely saves. And maybe he did last year when they went on to win the Scudetto. And they also got those timely goals. Lukaku would sometimes put the team on his back and maybe paper over the cracks that this Inter team, though good and solid, maybe just had this boost from Lukaku, kind of having these individual efforts to break through, roll somebody off the shoulder of the center back, and bury one. And all of a sudden that releases so much pressure that the team's under. So, and I'm going to reference this point again against Chelsea, because Chelsea, I think, have only scored 6 goals in the league in their last 5 games, where you have to be perfect. And when you have to be perfect every single game, it's going to be very hard to go on to win any kind of title, because at some point you're going to crack. So I don't know. I was disappointed at Inter. They got fortunate that Milan dropped points as well. And as you mentioned with Napoli, they got a big chance in their next game to go to the top of the table. And we'll see if they can handle the pressure. I don't know. If anything, it's kind of letting Juve sneak up there, even though they didn't take the points against Torino, to maybe get back into the conversation as well, which would be wild at this point, given how Juve have been inconsistent as well.
Well, that's absolutely it. Obviously, you just mentioned it. Napoli play away to Cagliari, depending on how you Cagliari. And moving on to, let's talk about this Juve Torino game. I mentioned it before when we had the Barcelona Espanyol. We had some of these when you have sort of the local, not Espanyol. Who is it that Barcelona played recently? Was it Espanyol?
Yeah, that's Espanyol.
Yeah, the local rivalries and the opportunity now. Obviously, this leans heavily historically towards Juventus, but Juventus hit a little bit of a road bump here, and they end up drawing. Do you think this is like a stop of momentum? I was reading some of the comments just about the team. There was some injuries as well. 3 players coming off in that matchup, where I'm a little bit worried. Rugani comes out during the warm-up injured. Pellegrini starts in his place. He comes out injured,
At
which they're
halftime.
trying to downplay at halftime. And then Dybala also comes out with what they're saying is nothing to worry about. But do you think this is a momentum killer for a team that's trying to seemingly finding their best 11, starting to creep up the table a little bit? Or do you just think it's circumstantial in the fact that they're kind of at this point of the season where they've got Champions League coming up, then they've got Empoli after that? I mean, what's your take on the state of Juventus?
My first take is, and it's a non-emotional take, right? I'm not getting into the emotion of their performance per se. They just played a derby game, and a derby game just isn't the same as other games. And I think that has to be taken into consideration, especially because Torino probably were, obviously at this point, away at Juve, have to punch above their weight and have to perform. And I think they were up for it. They didn't make it easy for Juve. And Vlahovic, I thought they did a good job on him. I thought he was relatively quiet, maybe his most quiet performance so far.
Well, Jimmy, what the manager had said about him is that they kept making him run everywhere, right? And he's got to find this new thing. The other comment he made about him was that he's not used to playing 2 games a week. He's been on a great run, but he's at a team that plays 1 game a week, and sort of like building some parameters around him of like, hey, you need some time, and this is a different level, and this is a different type of setup for him.
Sure.
And when he's not going direct to goal, it's when he gets pulled all over the place to go find the game, it's not his best style of play.
No, that's a great point. The rhythm, right? He's now into a new rhythm where you have to play really, really important games every 3-4 days, where Fiorentina, they hope you win, but it's not always expected. Whereas at Juve, you're expected to win every single game. We talked about Locatelli playing next to Zakaria. That happens. But Allegri elected to go with Rabiot over McKennie. Now, is that because they've got Champions League midweek and he's taking that into consideration, or would rather have McKennie fresh? That's more than possible. But I thought they missed a little bit of what McKennie brings, a little bit more of that box-to-box and adventurousness, right? Where he takes some chances and maybe some risks that Rabiot won't. Rabiot, I think, likes to sit and look to maintain possession. He'll run and break the lines every once in a while. McKennie's looking to do it a little bit more, especially without the ball. Now, Zakaria, I think, is better as a 6, but they want that to be what? The regista, right? The deep lying playmaker. And I don't think he has that. And I think he's a little bit more of an 8, but if they want him to play a little bit more out wide, I think the name of the role is a mezzala. And an 8 is a central midfielder that goes out wide. And I don't think Zakaria looks as comfortable out wide. So they have to figure that out. If he can pinch in a little bit more and let Cuadrado, and I think that happens for the most part, but there are moments where I think he gets pulled out a little bit into channels that he's just not as comfortable with. So I think they're going to figure that out, right? You got new players, new system, new rhythm for these new guys as Vlahovic and Zakaria. And today they just went up against an opponent, or this weekend against Torino, where it's a derby game. And so my emotional take is, you got to play McKennie. My non-emotional take is, it's okay. I get it. And they did drop some points. I think what hurts the most with this result is that Milan ended up dropping points. They played on Friday. Milan drops points, Inter drops points, and if Napoli drops points too, it is a massive, massive missed opportunity for Juve to climb and gain some ground on some of these teams.
Jeez Louise, Jimmy Conradinho, dude, the naturalized Italian from Brazil, Conradinho with some of this Italian talk. I love it. It's fantastic. Elsewhere in Serie A, Roma played 2-2 with Verona. This brings me joy on so many levels. Maybe not you so much, Jimmy, but obviously 2 teenagers, Volpato, who's 18, and Bove, 19, pull Roma level. Mourinho then gets sent off for kicking the ball away and making telephone gestures at the ref. While the spectacle is fantastic, you, Jimmy, as a Roma fan, I mean, what's your take on the overall performance or state of this team? It just seems very rocky. I mean, on one hand, it's great. You're developing players that are performing, that are teenagers. But on the other hand, you're kind of falling from the pack consistently here, where you're almost settling into being a different team. Nobody's talking about you in the way that they would have earlier on in the season with Jose Mourinho at the helm and Tammy Abraham and some others. I'm not saying they were ever going to be in a title race, but they're now in 8th place.
No, I know that, but they're 5 games unbeaten in the league. I know they in between that.
Jimmy, don't call it 5 games unbeaten when 3 of those are draws. Okay, don't wear rose-colored lenses.
I am.
This,
I'm going positive on this because I know they lost the Coppa Italia 2-0 to Inter, but there is something about this team and the fact that they went down 2-0 and figured out a way to solve that problem and some pretty inspired subs. We know from Mourinho, and I put behind me, if you can't see me, I have a sign behind me that says Mourinho is my spirit animal, because I love the fact that he got the ball and kicked it. I love that. This pumps me up. I mean, it matters to him. But the fact that he never really relies on younger players, and he did in this particular moment to go in there, and then they ended up paying off for him, is pretty cool. And I think maybe shows a little bit of an evolution to Mourinho and his goddamn stubbornness.
That's such a lie. There's no evolution there.
No, there is no evolution. He is who he is. I think at the end of the day, Rui Patricio still makes maybe too many mistakes when you need him to be solid. You know, the game you need him to like come up with saves. He just gives up soft goals at times. So that's been bothering me from a Roma supporter support. And then also, in fairness to him, at the defense in front of him isn't great. And I feel like they give up way too many opportunities. And I thought Verona were just a little bit sharper in those areas, in those moments. And it just kind of lacked. When I watched Roma play defensively, especially when the ball gets in and around the box, it's like they're looking at other people to do the job instead of just doing it themselves. That lack of awareness, or that lack of danger. Like, oh, I call it when I coach, like it's an oh shit moment. Like you can see everything unfold. Can you get there before it gets as bad as it can get, which is obviously giving up a goal? And I don't feel like Roma, there might be one or two guys that are in that mode, but then the rest of the team isn't as switched on. And so that must frustrate Mourinho, because you can't go out there and play for him. So because that's so consistent, that's got to it's getting tiring for me as a fan. And they pay for it every single game. They seem to pay for it, unless Rui Patricio has a good game. So they're kind of where I thought they were going to be. They just need to go on a little bit of a run, and they'll be right back into the conversation for 5th or 6th. They're not too far off of it, but you got to love Jose Mourinho making the news by kicking the ball into the stands.
I love it. And just as a reminder, make sure you get in the comments and join in on the conversation. We'll throw those comments, questions, concerns up onto the screen whenever possible. At least our producer, Des, will do that. And by the way, if you didn't already know, tomorrow, Cagliari playing Napoli. 1 p.m. on Paramount Plus. You don't want to miss that one. And here you go. AC Milan drew against Salernitana. Inter Milan lost to Sassuolo. Napoli play. If I say it wrong one more time, someone's going to crush me. So the race for the Scudetto keeps on getting better, as you can see.
Cagliari. I don't know.
Cagliari. Yeah, that works. But make sure you tune into that if you're on. If you're at your office or you're at work or you're working from home, just throw it on. It's a great game. It has implications. So let's move on, Jimmy, to kind of check in on how the teams playing in Champions League next week fared over the weekend. I think we've got a graphic that we can throw up here as well. And by the way, on Monday, we'll be doing an in-depth preview of all the week's Champions League games. So keep your eyes and ears peeled out to the Qué Golazo podcast and YouTube feeds, because they're great and they're a lot of fun. So check it out. We got a graphic here.
Champions League schedule. Let's go.
And by the way, our producer Des just mentioned, as he works in real time, shifting around on the screen, that tomorrow's President's Day. So you got no excuses if you're off, or if you're not. Just tune in, join in on the conversation. But yes, of course, obviously, as I mentioned, the preview is going to be coming out soon. Chelsea play Lille, Villarreal against Juventus, Atletico Madrid versus Man United. An interesting Man United, Jimmy. We'll get to them. Benfica play against Ajax. And then over the weekend, obviously, Juventus drew 1-1 with Torino. Villarreal 4-1 over Granada. And by the way, you can check out LME's interview with hat-trick hero Arnaud Danjuma on the Qué Golazo feed. It's really good.
Good performance by Yellow Submarine. Very good. Yeah, and a good interview as well. Everybody should check that out. He's seems like a pretty cool dude.
Absolutely. And we'll break out into some of these conversations a little bit more as we go through our show today. But Chelsea 1-0 over Crystal Palace. Lille drew 0-0 with Metz. Our boy Timo Weah coming off the bench in the first half, I believe, for an injury, or coming on for an injury. Benfica played 2-2 with Reggie Cannon's Boavista. Ajax win 1-0 over Willem Twee, I believe they're pronounced. Atletico Madrid, Jimmy.
3-0, baby.
Luis Suarez with a beautiful little banger there.
Maybe goal the La Liga season. Go on, Luis Suarez.
I mean, the way he struck that, by the way, left foot, if anybody didn't see, unbelievable hit where he put his head up and hit it from long, left footed, whips it around the keeper, who's a little bit stranded in no man's land. And the Man United. Okay,
no. You're doing that goal a disservice, Heath, because it was an Osasuna corner. Okay, Osasuna had their own corner. They whip it in. It gets clear.
Osasuna, who, by the way, that's 3-0. Doesn't tell the whole story of that game. I
had chances.
I'm happy to jump over it. We could come back to it when we get to the La Liga section later on. But Osasuna had chances in the first half, but it was but
it was a corner for Osasuna. The ball gets cleared. It goes to Joao Felix, who hits it first time into space into the running path of Luis Suarez, who then scored. They scored on 2 touches off an Osasuna corner. which is insane when you like think about how is that even remotely possible. And Atletico Madrid pulled it off. A necessary win for Atleti, especially having those good vibes going into the Man United game. So, who knows? Who knows?
I agree. And then finally, that last team playing in Champions League, Man United versus Leeds. Man United win 4-2. We're going to talk about all of that.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
In each one of these little sections. But listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into some more specific leagues. We'll be right back. Hey, everyone. We are back. And that was a quick little break, but we're going to get back into it. And don't be shy. Get into the mix. Join the comments. Throw in some comments, throw in some hot takes, throw in some questions. We'll get those up on the screen. We'll force Jimmy to be a little uncomfortable. Maybe his hands will sweat if you ask the right type of question. Jimmy, I want to talk about the Premier League.
Okay? Let's do it.
And we got lots of things we can talk about. We can go back, forth, whatever. But I want to start Man City versus Spurs. Spurs win it at the death. Conte had an unbelievable week. Do you think, this is the specific question before we get into the game itself, that this is a revival moment for Spurs? Or
didn't they have that though at Manchester City? Didn't they have the revival moment where they scored 2 goals, Steve Bergwijn, and injury time?
Yeah, but this is Harry. I mean, this was a Harry Kane led Spurs match. This had classic Spurs. Spurs and Kane and Son had that 1-2 combination where they kind of finally on the same page again, where they're looking for each other like you have with big teams, where you have 2 stars and you're like, well, if I go with that guy, then that guy is running into the space behind me, and they're kind of, they've just had these world-class performances and on the same page again, which I hadn't seen in a long time. Is it a revival or just we saw an unbelievable performance from Spurs?
I think it was an unbelievable performance. I think that looking at the game itself and then looking and listening to the comments from Antonio Conte and Pep Guardiola afterwards, Conte came out and said that this is what we worked on. We worked on counter-attacking. And what I think that Spurs did really well is they showed some vulnerabilities in Man City's defense and in their transition game. Not from, when we think transition, we always think defense to attack. I'm actually saying the other way, from attack to defending, that Spurs did to great effect, and they punished them.
Actually, Jimmy, let me pause you real quick.
Yeah, shoot.
Give me your anecdotally. How did your brain work as a player? Was transition to you more often in your mind when you heard transition? Was it defense to offense or offense to defense as a defender? And the way that you're.
No, I always thought defending to attack was like when I hear the word transition. Now you just kind of naturally assume when I think about without the ball, I think more about team shape and collective pressure. Like, how are we going to press? Where are we trying to win it?
Yeah.
I guess I don't think about, when I think of the word transition, it doesn't always it doesn't trigger defending. When I think transition, it's okay, I have the ball. We just won it. How are we going to get in and out, like in, back, and through? How are we going to unlock their immediate pressure, especially if you have an organized team that you're playing against? So I just thought the Spurs did a good job of that. They conceded 70% possession, which isn't my favorite. I hate when you see a team like Spurs who do have quality to hold the ball, just kind of like, oh, you can have it. But in this particular instance, because City is so good at wearing you down and they will find those pockets of space and will exploit you if you get too stretched out, I can understand why teams, even with top quality world-class players, do come in and try to be a little thoughtful about how they want to move. And that first goal was tremendous. Harry Kane, good hold-up play. It's interesting. We use him as an example. If you're going to beat a team like Manchester City, who does have so much of the ball, you have to have a player that can hold it up so that you can move your team forward. Because if you are going to sit back and try to defend at your 30 yards away from goal, when you win it, you still got a long-ass way to go before you can even create an opportunity. And that takes a lot of energy itself. So not only do you have to have that energy to be disciplined in your team shape defensively, but then when you get it, how can you hurt him? So with Harry Kane, I thought his hold-up play was very good. He gets it. He finds his release, right? He gets it, holds it up, plays it back, and then that just allowed things to get unlocked. And the weight of his passes, I mean, sometimes we talk about him. He might have been a great fit for Man City as a player because they like their number 9 to kind of act like a number 10. They like their number 9 to be able to be comfortable in the outside channels. And I know Conte came out and said that he doesn't want Harry Kane to be sideline to sideline anymore. He wants him to be a little bit more narrow and stay more central because it helps the team move in a different way, and it allows Heung-min Son to actually have space to run into. But some of those goals were world-class. Some of the counterattacking goals were unbelievable. And I think what happened after Riyad Mahrez scored to make it 2-2, it's not that they relaxed a little bit, but this is a sign for me of a tired team, a team that plays a lot of games. All they needed to do was close down the player that was going to cross the ball. And then Harry Kane wouldn't even have found himself on the end of it to head it in. And they just didn't get out there with any real not that there wasn't urgency, but it's just kind of, when guys get out there and the ball's out wide and now I'm standing up and they kind of like, they don't really go, but they're out there, and maybe they're blocking a bit of a passing lane so the guys in the box can maybe read where the ball's going to go, can attack it accordingly. But you, especially Heath, have to know that when you're tired, you kind of just go out there to be a guy so that they cross it and don't take you one-on-one. But I just thought that I saw City do that a few times and they got punished for it. And Pep was pissed after the game, Heath, because he's like, we didn't give them any chances, but they scored 3 goals. And that's what we've seen happen to City at times. Now they're going to respawn and they're going to be fine. And I think, well, at least we got a title race on our hands, but which I appreciate with Liverpool winning. But that's what I saw from the game.
Yeah, and our producer Des poses an interesting question here. Is last week we thought that Conte's comments were demoralizing to the team, right? Sort of just even the comments about Kulusevski. And then you see a bounce back performance like this. Obviously, players are all motivated by their own internal, motives and things that drive them. Now, those can be shaken and all kinds of things depending on the support that you feel that you have, the morale of the team, the locker room, the energy, and the facilities, and all those things. But is the narrative about Conte here, or is this just like a great team performance? Because what I saw, and I just saw this connection between Son and Kane that I hadn't seen it again in a long time, where
it's
he's
been a
such
while.
a threat behind where you see it from occasionally, but to be on the same page as much as they were, where, like you said, somebody that can hold the ball up, lay the ball off, or be able to just slot somebody through, knowing that a team is vulnerable, they're carrying possession, they're sending numbers forward. Like, it just felt like it was finally Spurs doing what they do best and keeping a team like Man City honest when they probably thought that they could control all that.
No, that's true. I'm actually looking back to see when they scored the first goal or if they scored the first goal. And obviously they lost to Wolves prior. They didn't score the first goal in that one. And in the Southampton game, they got an own goal. They went up 1-0. Then it was 1-1 very quickly. And then 2-1 Hingman's son. And they gave up those 2 late goals to lose Southampton at home. I just was trying to I just wonder if the game changes if City scores first. Because that first Spurs goal was so good that it came so early that I feel like it gave Spurs that belief that they could go on and do it. That, hey, today's our day. And it coming from a player that had been criticized by Conte, that hadn't really put his mark on the team just yet. And for him to have coolly slotted home like it was no big deal, it was I thought was really cool. And I think it just gave the team that lift and energy to go on and like, let's fight. We have something to fight for here. If City scores first, I don't know. I don't know if I feel the same way. Will Spurs punch back at that point, being goal down when City starts to then suffocate you with their possession? It's hard to say. But they had 21 shots in total, City. And Spurs had 6 total. Spurs got 5 of 6 on goal, which led to 3 goals. And only 4 shots were on goal for City, which is pretty surprising given how much possession they had. So you really have to give a shout out as well. I thought Christian Romero, just his mere presence and not having Davinson Sanchez in there, who at times I think has been a bit shaky, I thought was important as well. So I don't know. Back to your original question. Is this a watershed moment for Spurs where they're going to kick on and turn their season around and really kind of find that consistency under Conte? I don't know. But I think they put themselves in a good place. And I think for all of us neutrals that don't really have a horse in the race in the Premier League, it's pretty cool that the title races feels like it's back on.
Yeah, and obviously Liverpool beat Norwich 3-1. And this loss,
they were down 1-0, by the way. I just want to say, that was going to be tight.
I read this thing about Norwich, and I thought about this with regards to Salernitana when you said it earlier, is when I was reading, they were like, and it's pretty true, which is they are who they are, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have the money. They don't have the funds. They're far undermanned in terms of being a competitive team. And occasionally they can punch people. And sometimes it looks like they're in matches and then they sort of just fade off into almost oblivion by giving up games. And obviously they're not expected to beat a Liverpool, but like you said, to go up, I think it was on some crazy deflection goal. But
they all count, Heath.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Jimmy. You and I both know who didn't get to score all that often. Every one of them counts. And by the way, for all of you that are just arriving, make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel. And I want to know who's winning the Premier League. It is back on, Jimmy.
You know what? Can I talk about Liverpool really quick? I talk about Liverpool really quick? I actually was pretty excited and inspired by Jurgen Klopp going with Sadio Mane in the false 9 spot or in the 9 spot Mo Salah on one side and Luis Diaz on the other, and they were interchanging. And for the most part, and I just thought, imagine having that type of luxury that you have Firmino, you have Jota, but now you got Luis Diaz, who scored a tremendous goal, by the way. Great through ball by Jordan Henderson, which was, I don't know, I'm trying to decide what was initiated first. I think Diaz making a good hard run in behind, but a good classy
but
finish.
Did you see his first touch is unbelievable on that finish,
good.
where if you ever see somebody in stride and that first touch sets them up for that finish.
Yeah.
And the first touch is better than the finish, and the finish is nice. You're just like, this is world class. Just like on the stride, it was unbelievable. Yeah.
And all three of those guys scored. Sadio Mane scored a ridiculous goal, and Mo Salah gets an assist from Alisson up over the top, and that, like, it's a Hail Mary. They definitely, it's like a set play, and you love to see it. And Mo Salah almost didn't get it out of his feet, but ends up scoring with his weak foot. And it was just a good performance. They have some very talented players. If Liverpool stay healthy, this could come down to the very end. If I'm not mistaken, I think April 6th or April 7th is when Liverpool travel to the Etihad to play Man City. And that could have massive implications. I already have it circled on my calendar, except I had to circle both dates because I can't remember which one.
Yeah, with that weekend. That's pretty good.
It's Jimmy. That weekend, man.
It's that weekend. Yeah. Well, Man United beat Leeds 4-2.
Yes.
Man United have gone 50 games without managing back-to-back clean sheets. Again, this is another one where I think about Spurs in the same context of, are we seeing something different? Obviously, for Leeds, on one hand, for them, they play Liverpool next, and then they have Spurs as well. So not an easy schedule by any means, but focusing on Manchester United, they got Champions League coming up. But, there was some energy to the way in which they played. Do you think it's going to make a difference? Obviously, a little body language from Ronaldo coming off again. Even though they were winning, having to come off the pitch. But, kind of what's your take on Manchester United right now when with regard to the top four this year, right? You've got Spurs getting that big result. Arsenal won over the weekend, and then Man United in the mix as well as West Ham.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty impressive result because they were up 2-0. Then they let it slip. And I wonder, at that point at 2-2, Leeds had a lot of opportunities. And I was like, holy crap, they're going to give it up. And if they had given up that lead, I really fear for they wouldn't have fired Rangnick, but I just don't know if he would have been able to regain the trust of the group. Like, whatever he's doing, it's not working. Everybody's frustrated and super emotional. But the fact that they punched back and that Fred came on in the 77th or 78th minute and scored a couple minutes later and scored a very good goal, by the way. I feel like what Fred did, whether you love him or hate him, and I feel like there's no in between if you're a Man United supporter about Fred, when he came in, it just felt like the team was a little bit more balanced and that the team actually looks a little bit more comfortable when Fred's on the field. Because I think, and you know this too, Heath, we've played with players that don't hit the stat sheet for any particular reason, but they do these little things that make the game a little bit more predictable and easier for everybody else. And I think Fred falls into that category. And Fred came on for Paul Pogba ultimately, or Jesse Lingard. I thought Pogba, by the way, can I have a quick aside about Paul Pogba, everybody?
Please.
This guy, when he's under pressure and he can feel somebody on his back, he is so silky getting out of stuff sometimes. Now, obviously, he tries it in areas where you're like, please don't do it, Paul. And then he does it. You're like, God, that guy's world class, right? But God, he's so good. I love watching him play. And there are some things that he does that other players on the team just can't do. And so it's hard. You just wonder, where's his best spot? How can we use that in a positive way more often than work? Because I don't know, man. I don't want to get too far into the Pogba stuff because I'm a huge fan. But at times, I think he is a bit of a defensive liability where he maybe takes risks when he tries to win a ball or whatever, and maybe his positioning isn't as sound as it can be. When you just have these workers, when McTominay and Fred are out there, they just work. And when you have workers, it just makes the game easier, especially for the center backs. And so, but Elanga comes on for Fred Fred and Elanga come on for Pogba and Lingard. And I thought those two subs just gave the team a little bit more better balance. And they looked a little bit more comfortable. And they went on and won the game. And also, and when we talk about in-game management, they saw the game out. Now, we've seen already plenty of examples, Heath, where United get themselves in a good spot and then they get a little leaky in defense. And I just thought they did a good job of seeing this game out because the game was in the balance at 2-2. And then Rangnick made some super subs, and it changed the game. And I thought that was well played by everybody. And I know that CR7 is going to be pissed, but they brought on Varane for him. It's not like they switched him out for an attacker. And that just helps solidify the results. So it's a big, big win for Manchester United.
Yeah, it's still a little bit alarming to give up 2 goals. You know, you score late in the half, then you give up some within 10 minutes. You're kind of
Dude, they
level
scored in the
into the
53rd and 54th minute, by the
yeah.
way.
It's
Bang,
it's
bang.
it's it's crazy, and I would love it if producer Des can throw up the table actually if he's got it around and able to go up on the screen because it gets really interesting from here, especially with Wolves. They have their 2-1 win over Leicester. And then it just starts to get real clunky in here. West Ham United, Jimmy. I want to get your take on this West Ham Newcastle game. Newcastle continue. I think it's 5 or how many games in like undefeated are yeah 5 and yeah. It's pretty impressive considering the state that they were in. Obviously expected considering that they are Newcastle, considering that they do have some talent. But if you look at the top sort of 6, 7, 8, you've got Spurs, you got Arsenal. Now you got Wolves, who've inserted them into the conversation. They've got some games in hand compared to a West Ham United does, and they're sitting on 40 points. I mean, who do you think ends up even in the order of it all?
I'm going to stick with what I said before on the previous Qué Golazo. I like Arsenal to finish 4th. I just think that they had a good, solid performance against Brentford. Emile Smith-Rowe looked very good, looked busy. Yep. Their energy looks good. And Brentford's not an easy team to just casually dismiss in some ways. I thought they were in relative good control of that game. Now, Spurs are obviously going to be in the equation, but where I mentioned before is Mikel Arteta's got this group of players where when I look at Man United, when I look at Conte, they have managerial changes. Conte, look at Spurs. They both had managerial changes, and that's hard to like wrangle everybody in, get everybody on the same page, and then go on this tough run when you're like trying to compete in multiple competitions. I still like Arsenal to do the business. They're my quiet dark horse to get that 4th spot. I think West Ham's
9 points. 9 points would put them, even though they've only got 2 games in hand over Chelsea. I mean, it puts them in the conversation for your top 3 starts to change. The dynamic starts to change there.
Dude, can we just really quick about Chelsea? They're doing what they're like barely getting results. I know they doing the FIFA Club World Cup and all that. They needed an 88th or 89th minute winner from Hakim Ziyech to win that one. Romelu Lukaku, by the way, only had 7 touches.
He had 2 in the first half. 2 in the whole first half.
2 touches in the whole first half. That is crazy. That is. And
I think one was in the 3rd minute and one was something.
One was off the kickoff.
Yeah.
One of the touches was off the kickoff. Listen. I don't blame Lukaku. It's easy to say, well, this is a stat that's attached to Lukaku, but he's surrounded by other guys that should be able to get him the ball. And I was happy to see Pulisic start. We'll talk about it more on the U.S. men's national team hour tomorrow. That's kicking off at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Come back and join us for that. But Pulisic was a little bit more central. He got 37 touches. He was pretty involved. Then he slowed down in the second half a bit. But it looked like Tuchel was trying to get Pulisic on the ball a little bit more. And maybe because of that, Lukaku suffered. But 7 touches overall, and one of them was the kickoff. That just shows me that they need to figure out a way to get Lukaku the ball, even if he's getting stacked up by a team like Crystal Palace.
Well, I got to say, Jimmy, just give me your quick take on Wolves because, we talked about the fact that they don't score much. But they scored 2 today to beat Leicester after going 1-1. And their last 3 games, they got 6 points out of their last 3 games where they played Arsenal, Spurs, and Leicester City. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I have, going back, they lost to Norwich in the FA Cup 4th round. But, it's a string of games that can change the trajectory of a season when you start to believe in your own hype a little bit.
Well, what I'll say is, and everybody should circle this game on their calendar because it's happened midweek.
Circle the weekend like Jimmy, and then figure out
circle the whole week because if you can't remember the date. But on the 24th, February 24th, Arsenal is hosting Wolves at the Emirates, and that I think will be a strong indicator for not only for you and I, but for the fans of both respective clubs as to their legitimacy for top 4.
That's Thursday, by the way, for anybody that can't figure that out.
I can't figure it out either. Yeah, and then Wolves go to, and then the following week, the game after on the weekends, which is on a Sunday, they're going to play against West Ham at the London Stadium. I really feel like those 2 games in particular, we're going to find out if Wolves are going to be pretenders or contenders for that top 4 spot. Even though they scored 2 goals today, they don't score a lot of goals. They don't give up a lot of goals either. So it's always going to be a grind. Can I see them grind to that 4th spot? I don't know. I like Bruno Lage. I like what he's done. I know we've already talked that he does all these video meetings like twice a day to really make sure the players know how they should move in different situations. And it's clearly paying off in some capacity. But until they lock that kind of goal scoring form, I just don't see how they can 0-0 their way into the top 4.
That's well said. I mean, It's gonna be tough, but like you said, we'll
but this
find
week,
out
this
soon.
upcoming week, yeah,
soon enough.
the proof is in the pudding, and we got two big opponents in the pudding this week. Away to Arsenal and away to West Ham.
Well, let's do a quick little whip through, Jimmy, of La Liga, Bundesliga, Liga 1 as well. Obviously, Valencia, Barcelona, Aubameyang with his first start in the league. Did you say that they gave him the hat trick for that?
They did. Pedri came on his first touch of the game as a sub, and he hits a peach of a shot, but it ends up skimming the back of Aubameyang, and they end up, because it deflected enough for the scores of La Liga, they gave that goal to Aubameyang, who'd already had two. So he gets a hat trick in his first ever start in La Liga. You love to see it, right, Arsenal fans? You love it. I mean, you just love to see that. Isn't that great?
I mean, when you think about Dembele, who played really well, and you think about Aubameyang, who's obviously, and James Bench said this, they're gonna get his best as soon as he's there. And then Ferran Torres, you've got a squad in the attack. Does it matter? Is it enough for anything substantial, or did they just sort of, find a nice little stopgap that's going to get them some fun results? Because certainly an on form or an in form Aubameyang is one of the best in the world.
Oh, 100%. I mean, just the variety of his goals today. He hit one, got kind of pulled off the shoulder, created a passing lane, took a good touch, and roofed it into the net for his first goal. Then he becomes, tap-in merchant and finds himself in a good spot. He almost misses it, by the way. I think it hits his foot and the bottom of his foot and goes in, but he doesn't care.
They all count.
They all count. And then he's just around and he's busy and put himself in a good spot. And that's more fortuitous to get that third one, but he'll take it for sure. And I just like, as the games go on with this particular team, Traore, Ferran Torres, Ousmane Dembele, who was one of Aubameyang's teammates at Borussia Dortmund. They clearly look like they have a good relationship. They look like they like playing with each other, which I think, when I looked at Dembele prior, it didn't look like he was having that much fun while he was playing, right? And then the same thing for Aubameyang at Arsenal. Just now it looks like when Aubameyang has that joy. Remember when he pulled out the Batman mask when he was at Dortmund? He was having fun and enjoying himself. And if he can tap back into that, that's an Aubameyang that I think everybody should fear. And if Traore gets hit going, I thought Serginho Dest was excellent. And in fact, Xavi came out today and said, this is the best we've seen Serginho Dest, and he was unbelievable today. Something crazy, like the praise that Xavi gave Serginho Dest was, I was like, what is even happening? And so he was good. I mean, he was the one that kind of set in motion a couple of the goals today. And that's only a good sign for the U.S. men's national team. Of course, we'll talk about it tomorrow at the U.S. men's national team hour, kicking off at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, everybody. But I was really happy with his performance. And now they've got a little bit of depth on both sides of the ball. I think defensively, you can still see some vulnerabilities there for Barcelona, which might be their Achilles heel for maybe kicking on to challenge Madrid for the La Liga title, especially with Sevilla dropping points this weekend. But I think it will solidify their stance and their status in the top four. They're going to qualify for the Champions League for sure.
Yeah, and then Espanyol obviously stealing 2 points away from Sevilla. Sevilla finishing out on the draw there. Sevilla now 6 points adrift of Real Madrid. Do you think this title race is kind of all but wrapped up? And which is bizarre, by the way, because Real Madrid, Benzema had a phenomenal game, 2 assists and a goal, and all in the second half. And it's just a completely different team that seems to function so well in La Liga compared to what we saw against PSG. But do you think the title race is over and that's their sort of where they're going to find their wins this year, Real Madrid?
Well, yes, I do ultimately think that Madrid are going to go on to win the league. Atleti are way too far off of it. Sevilla, I never really thought they were. I thought they could maybe hang around and be maybe a nuisance, but really challenge. Because imagine, we're already seeing it in Serie A. All of a sudden, AC Milan's kind of hanging around, challenging, and then they get that top spot. And like, woo, this seat's hot, man. I don't know if I like this seat. So if Sevilla did actually catch Madrid, could they handle that heat that comes with being the top spot? I don't know. I mean, I like their team. I love Julian Lopetegui, their manager. I think he's fantastic. But that's a different kettle, man. Different kettle of fish. And I think Madrid have enough experience in their team to be able to handle that and improve that time and again. Betis, I think, will end up falling off as much as I love Manuel Pellegrini. So I think Barcelona will slip in there. Atleti, who knows? I think they might get in there as well. And then Sevilla will probably end up being top four, unless Betis can figure it out. But what I'll say with this, I wanted to almost say, can we wait till midweek or when the second leg of the Champions League happens in a couple weeks? Because if Madrid get bounced by PSG, then all their focus is domestic. And then I think for sure, I mean, if Ancelotti, all he had to focus on was the league week in and week out, they're going to cruise just like Inter Milan did when they got bounced from Europe last season.
Well said. Let's move on to Bundesliga.
The
Dortmund,
Bundesliga.
Bundesliga. So obviously, Dortmund 6-0 over Gladbach. But the thing that I wanted to mention to everybody that's listening, and we'll talk about it again in more detail on the USMNT Hour tomorrow afternoon, is Gio Reyna coming off injured again. There's no real solid updates on what the injury was, but it was just, you could see a deflating moment for a young player. And I think it's just a little bit worrying. This is, we've been waiting a long time for US fans. And again, we'll talk about it in detail tomorrow. And hopefully by then we'll have more updates. But Dortmund rolling Borussia Mönchengladbach, and then also Bayern Munich coming back with a comfortable win. Lewandowski scoring his goals that he needed to after going 1-0 down to bottom of the table, Greuther Fürth. Bottom of the table things. They had some momentum here today when we talk about Salernitana, and then ultimately they fell short of it, Greuther Fürth, in the second half because Bayern decided to play like Bayern, and they were at home and ran away with that one. Any thoughts from the Bundesliga this weekend?
Well, I'll say that great response from Borussia Dortmund. They had shipped 5. They lost to Bayer Leverkusen 5-2. They lose to Rangers 4-2 in the Europa League. And it's just Marco Rose, former manager of Borussia Mönchengladbach, taking on his former team. So for them to have this type of performance without Erling Haaland and having Marco Reus step up, 2 goals and 3 assists in this one, was nice. It was good for them. And hopefully they can parlay that into a good performance against Rangers at the Ibrox in Glasgow this upcoming week. But I don't know. Defensively, it's probably really good for them to get a clean sheet as well. If Erling Haaland plays against Rangers, I think they're going to be fine. But this is a response that they needed. This is a response of a team that okay, we're going to start taking things serious, because it seemed like at times almost too casual. Even their game against Rangers just felt a little bit casual. The Gio Reyna stuff completely bumps me out, and we just got to get more information on what it is, because we had his dad, Claudio Reyna, on CBS Sports HQ earlier this week, or earlier in the week. And he had mentioned that Borussia Dortmund did a really good job with his hamstring. Like, he actually has been healthy for a month, dude. And they just were really smart in easing him back. And when you see, like, post the World Cup qualifying window, they gave him 30 minutes. Then they gave him 45. He passed all those tests, right? And then he finally gets his start against Mönchengladbach. And then he gets hurt again. If it's the same hamstring and this, if anybody's had significant injury, sometimes when you're trying to protect your hamstring, something else tweaks, because now you're kind of being over-reliant on another area. So I wonder if it's the same one, or if it's going to be something different, like a back or a quad or a calf, because it's just trying to compensate to protect the space that's been hurt for a while. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. And they literally say, and not what I say, I say sort of like the sports science people, that the world's best athletes aren't the best athletes. They're the best. Their bodies are the best at compensating, right? Mm-hmm. They're the best at sort of readjusting on the fly to demand incredible, just power out of their bodies. And anytime you have a reoccurring injury, anything like that, it starts to become part of your head as well. So hopefully it's nothing major to have to worry about with him, but we'll talk about that more. Hopefully we'll have more information. Jimmy, PSG, UCL hangover. Neymar scored in garbage time, and had a tame penalty saved. I don't know if you've had a chance to go back and watch that penalty, but it's one of those ones that, remember when you start playing FIFA for the first time again, a new one comes out and you just don't know how to kick it. So either you blast it into the stands in the video game, or you kind of like barely touch it. It was like one of those slow rollers where like everybody just sort of was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened.
I mean, they had, it wasn't a great performance from PSG. And I think maybe that play in particular kind of epitomized just how things were going to go. But it's interesting, because when I look at their team, they got Kerr, right back, Navas and goal, Marquinhos, Kimpembe, their normal center back pairing, Bernat, who I do like when he plays for them. No disrespect to Nuno Mendes, who I really like, their youngster. Verratti, Idrissa Gueye, Wijnaldum in midfield. You're like, all right. And then you got Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar up top. And that on paper, that team should beat 99% of the teams in the world. But you still have to go out there and perform. Nobody owes you anything. You still have to go and earn everything that you're going to get. And I don't know if there was a bit of a hangover. I think that might be the best way to explain it. I think they're actually fortunate in some capacity to not have to play Real Madrid this upcoming week, that the Champions League second legs are not postponed, but you have to wait a couple weeks before that second leg, so they can really try to identify where they are and what they're about. And I get the sense that, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, Heath, or anybody listening or watching, they feel like they're so good they can hit the switch anytime. And I just don't think it's that easy. Even if you're world class, like Mbappe, Messi, Neymar, and everybody else that's in that team, it's just not that easy to hit the switch. And even though we do see it, they had that game where they played and they were pretty drab, even though they had, again, a lot of similar names for 75 minutes. Then all of a sudden it's bang, bang, bang. You have your world-class players do world-class things and Mbappe finishes it. You're like, all right. And it kind of just puts a Band-Aid on why can't they do that a little bit more consistently? Why are they just letting teams hang around when they don't need to? Maybe they're bored, dude. I don't know. I mean, maybe this shit's too easy for them. I have no idea, but I thought they looked pretty good against Madrid. I was really impressed with that performance because they'd just been so hot and cold this season. You just didn't know which team was going to turn up. And I just thought on both sides of the ball, that was probably the most disciplined performance I'd seen from PSG this season against Madrid. Just really thoughtful, not taking necessarily any big risks, getting their players that are really talented, getting the ball a little higher up the field. And they probably should have won by more than one goal. Probably a little fortunate for Madrid there. But this PSG team, a bit of an enigma, as they say.
Yeah, I agree. I think, my final thoughts on that. And our producer Des had a good point that Marquinhos' lack of pace was really exposed in this one, and definitely food for thought for Real Madrid in the second leg of that matchup. But you're right in the fact that I was wildly, overly impressed in their Champions League game because it looked mature. It didn't look like, when we talk about Barcelona, Real Madrid in their best days, you saw a team being put together over years, right? Pieces put into place. But PSG sort of just had this crazy, get everyone. And I've always known that, you're talking about a lot of egos, a lot of people with a lot of needs, and a lot of different leadership styles, a lot of different backgrounds, which is every team. But to put it all together in 1 year, you're kind of like, man, what's going to happen here, right? Who's going to take over this team? And I didn't think that we would see that performance against Real Madrid. I thought we'd see egos come out, and I was wildly surprised. But to go and get smacked the next weekend makes me wonder, like you said, is there just an arrogance? Is there this belief that we can turn it on or play against anyone? Or is this sloppy game playing against a team that is just going to scrap against us and fight and make it difficult and battle for 50-50 balls and play direct? And however it is that they're playing against, is this not entertaining for us? Is this not motivating or stimulating? I always just wonder.
I don't know. It's interesting because I don't know. Somebody put out a stat, which is hilarious, by the way, that Fred actually has more goals in his respective league than Messi has in his respective league, which is awesome, by the way. That Fred has got 3 goals in the Premier League and Messi's got 2 in Liga. And everybody thought he was just going to come in and walk Liga. It's the quote unquote farmers league or whatever. And it just hasn't been that easy. And I think in some ways that also kind of defines PSG, that again, you have all this talent on paper, but you still have to go out there and execute. And honestly, I think the biggest challenge for Mauricio Pochettino is which one of my luxury players is going to come out and perform today? Which one of them is actually engaged and focused to make that happen? Now we could probably look at a few plays in that Nantes game where, if things just had gone, the penalty, whatever, there's always a fine line between success and failure. And if something gets turned, maybe they go on and win the game. But yeah, it's tough. And to producer Des's point about Marquinhos with the lack of pace, I just don't know if Benzema is the player that can really hurt them. Vinicius maybe, but we've seen Madrid remember when Christian Pulisic played in the Champions League semifinal against Madrid? They put him up high, and I actually thought he scored the first goal because he got in behind.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if Madrid could think of a way to maybe get Vinicius a little higher up the field, see if he can be the one that creates the verticality, and then that Benzema, similar to Harry Kane, can drop into that space almost vacated by Vinicius, who is creating that verticality, to then turn and play, because we know that Benzema is also very talented at combining.
Well, that's and we can
we can say that for a Champions League preview another time.
Yeah, but it's literally the release of that, the speed of that release that I saw from Spurs that was really exciting, which is like, oh yeah, okay, I get what you're trying to do, but you're never going to do it, to then actually doing it, and you go, okay, that's how you break a team down, right? And Benzema doesn't have the pace to spring out anymore, but he could be the one that draws people in, that allows others to spring out and sort of have that 1-2 punch. Jimmy, we pretty much covered the things we wanted to cover today. Obviously, want to give you the microphone one last time if you have any closing thoughts.
My thoughts are about Aubameyang, dude. There's something about this performance by him that makes me excited for the future for Barcelona. I think that they've concocted something, even though being incredibly bankrupt, and they still found a way to now get $1 billion project to revitalize their stadium, and found the money to sign Ferran Torres, and have really scraped together a team that I think can be competitive. And I really like what Xavi's doing, and I love that he's gushing over Serginho Dest at the moment. I think that bodes well for Serginho's future. And I think that Barcelona are starting to unlock a few things, which I don't think it's going to make any difference this particular season. But I just want to give a shout out to Aubameyang. We knew that he'd probably go in and score a couple goals and, try to stick it to Arsenal fans a little bit. But Arsenal won this weekend too, so there's nothing to be sad about.
I mean, it's just a wild thought that, it's just a wild thought to me that they let him go for free to Barcelona. And it just shows you the clout, I guess, or the not clout, because clout is temporary, but like just the value that Barcelona has for a player like that they could recruit a player in the worst of times. And not that there was going to be a lot of teams that wanted Aubameyang, considering you were taking a risk on some level. Right. And it just sort of ends up being a perfect sort of match so far. And by the way, the U.S. women's national team is currently up 3-0 over New Zealand in the She Believes Cup after drawing their opener with a new team. Lots of young.
Can I just state for the record that center back for New Zealand, Michaela Moore, has 3 own goals. No joke.
Is that actually true?
That's what they're listing. They're listing right now that she has 3 own goals, center back for New Zealand. I need to now go see these. That's unbelievable.
That is not good. I will say on that note, and by the way, it's scoreless at halftime in the Basque Derby, and Udinese 1-1 with Lazio at halftime. But yeah, I remember playing in the Confederations Cup, Jimmy, and New Zealand. FIFA used to have a team of the tournament and a flop of the tournament. And I won't say who got flop of the tournament, but a New Zealand player did. And there was like, what an interesting thing, right? And I think it was because there was a couple own goals from New Zealand in the Confederations Cup, or it may have been World Cup that they did the whole thing. But like either way, there was a couple own goals from New Zealand. So hopefully it's not a habit. But yeah, I got to go back and watch that. But that is it from us, Jimmy. Thank you so much. And thank you all for watching and or listening. Follow Qué Golazo Podcast on Twitter at Qué Golazo Pod. Subscribe to the Qué Golazo page on YouTube and hit the notification bell. And of course, subscribe to Qué Golazo wherever you get your podcasts. Qué Golazo has loads more to come this week, starting on Monday with Fabrizio Romano, the Champions League preview, and as always, the USMNT Hour, which will be live on YouTube at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time. We'll be going live on YouTube again after Tuesday and Wednesday's Champions League action. And with the new MLS season about to begin, we've got you covered with an in-depth preview coming out on Thursday, as well as too many exclusive interviews to count, including Chicharito, like the way I said that, Andre Blake, Pat Noonan, and so many others. And of course, from myself, Jimmy Conrad, and our producer, Des Norris, and everybody else that works on this wonderful podcast, we thank you so much for tuning in, for watching, for listening, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Later.